Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here today. I would like to thank American University and the School of Communications for this incredible honor. I would first like to thank Dean Ruttenbeck, who has been or become a close personal friend of mine, so thank you for everything. President Burwell, who I know we're going to be longtime friends now. Jack Cassell, thank you. The Board of Trustees and the faculty, thank you so much. I also want to recognize my old pal, Adam Goodman, who's up here. We worked together on that little film called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'd like to acknowledge the graduates, friends, and families that are here today. Thank you guys for coming out to supporting the graduates. My own family is here today. I mean, come on, my mom is here. Hello, Mom. My mom is right there. And my husband, Scott, is here, and my son, Alex, who went to GW. Sorry, but I know, but they're here. My sister, Jill. And most importantly, come on, the class of 2019. Once an eagle, always an eagle. Of course, I mean, come on. I also have to give a special shout out to a lot of the AU students who helped me prepare for this speech today. Thank you, Jason Tifford and Phoebe Bell, where are you? Thank you, Phoebe, yeah. And also Jacob Wallace, thank you. Okay, if you would have told my 21-year-old self that I would be here one day receiving the Doctorate of Humane Letters and delivering the commencement address, I would have said, not a chance. But before I begin, I thought I would share some advice from my Viacom colleagues at your graduation. Now, you guys know Viacom's home to some of the greatest brands in the world, like MTV, Comedy Central, BET, Paramount Pictures, and some of the greatest characters and movies and shows ever created. I bet you guys didn't think today you'd be getting career advice from SpongeBob and RuPaul, right? Oh yeah, I know. Okay, so I remember the first day I was at American University. It was like yesterday. I drove to AU from my home in Pearl River, New York, with both of my parents on move-in day. Back then, okay, we needed 2 cars to get here since there was no Bed Bath & Beyond college essentials list. There was no curbside pickup from the Container Store. And back then, of course, we needed an entire trunk of 1 car just to haul my turntable, my album collection, and my speakers. I moved into Hughes Hall, and it was my 18th birthday, which was the legal drinking age back then. So guess who threw the first party on move-in day? Yeah, I made a lot of friends very fast. Like many of you, there are so many things that I love about AU. I mean, listen, the school is so beautiful. And the minute the weather started getting nice, we also were hanging on the quad. My friends and I, we used to meet up at the Tavern and Marion Graydon Center, or I think you guys call it now, MGC, right? There was no guapos, so we hung at Bowie Mongers, which I hear is still pretty good. And I wish we had a Davs for coffee, because I have no idea where I got my caffeine from back then. Among the many reasons I chose American University, and I know you did too, is because of its renowned internship programs. When I arrived, CNN had just launched, and its first Washington newsroom was on Wisconsin Avenue. I applied immediately and was so thrilled that I was able to get an internship. Getting in the ground floor was great because I got to do everything. I wrote copy, I interviewed politicians, I operated the camera. I was convinced that I was on my way to becoming an on-air journalist. During my senior year, I interned down the street, like many of you, at NBC. Oh, I know, Jacob told me, many of you interned there. And that's where I really developed my interest in politics, and I became a political science minor. By the time I graduated, I thought I would have zero trouble getting a job in broadcast journalism. I mean, come on. I had all these amazing internships, I had great experience, I had a great reel. Why couldn't I become the next Diane Sawyer? No problem. What I didn't realize, at the time, in television news, you don't get the big job in New York right away until you pay your dues in a smaller market like Bismarck, North Dakota. Hang on, that's where I got my first offer. Now, nothing against North Dakota, but I really wanted to stay a little bit closer to home. After I graduated and moved to New York, I did not get a job right away. In fact, it took me many months. I networked any chance I had, and after my 50th interview that didn't get me anywhere, yes, 50, I stopped counting. I remember coming home one day and sobbing to my roommate, I will never get a break, no one will ever hire me, and I will never work in communications. I made a list of all the people I met, and I tacked it on a bulletin board just to remind myself that I had actually done something all those months. I needed to see it on paper. But ironically, that list came in handy, very handy, in years to come. My journey was a long and winding path from graduating with a degree in broadcast journalism and political science to becoming the president of a division of a global media company. So this is what I want to talk to you guys about today. A career in communications never follows a straight path. You know this. You know this. As a communications major, isn't it a little unnerving to see the way that some of your friends in different fields like medicine and law, investment banking, or management consulting, they seem to already have a pretty clear career path, right? Yeah. What I want to emphasize to you is this. A career in communications is always a long path with many detours and unexpected turns along the way. As long as you guys continue to learn and take a few of the lessons that I want to walk you through, this path will take you exactly where you need to go. So let me share with you a little bit about my own journey. Okay, I finally landed that first job working at a very small graphic design agency called Graphic Unlimited in New York City. It was a company started by two women that produced fashion catalogs. It was a far cry from broadcast journalism and not something I ever dreamed of doing. But I loved it. I started as a coordinator, I wrote copy, I selected the models, and learned how catalogs were designed and produced. After 3 years, I knew it was time to leave. I had learned as much as I could, and I needed to feel inspired again like I did when I started at Graphic Unlimited. So I pulled out that tattered list, remember that one that was tacked on the bulletin board, and I started calling people. And this is the first lesson I want to tell you guys. You have to stay connected with the people you meet. You never know what can happen. While I was searching for that first job, one of my 50 interviews was at Gray Advertising in New York. At the time, there were no entry-level positions, but I had a great meeting with their HR department. So I recontacted them, and guess what? They remembered me and actually had an opening for a job working in Gray's promotions division. I didn't exactly know what a promotional division was, but they were impressed with my work and thought I would be a good fit, so who was I to argue? Although it was a completely different kind of role than producing catalogs, I discovered that I loved being an account executive. I learned how to be part of a larger team. I was really good at being a liaison between Gray and their blue chip clients. I honed my presentation skills and realized that unlike many of my colleagues, I actually liked being up in front of the room. Although I was not working for a television company, I really enjoyed the work I was doing. And this is a good time to share the second lesson. Do what makes you happy. It sounds so simple, right? Well, not really. A recent New York Times article titled "Wealthy, Successful, and Miserable" said that the happiest graduates were not those that made the most money or even the most successful in their chosen fields. The happiest people were those who, for whatever reason, weren't able to climb the corporate ladder, took a detour, and then found jobs that gave them a sense of purpose and meaning. So after gray advertising, I worked at an agency called Equity Marketing. Equity made the toys given away at fast food companies like Wendy's and Burger King. In my role as an account executive, I got to meet all the movie studios. I learned about their upcoming film slate, and then I worked with the agency to develop the toy ideas. I worked on promotions for shows like The Simpsons, countless Disney movies, and you know what, you guys? It was so much fun. One day, I got a call about a job at another agency. The job paid about 25% more than I was currently making. I went on 2 interviews. I wasn't so sure about this new role, and more importantly, I didn't like the person who would be my new boss. During the interview, he was really rude and condescending, and he barely asked me any questions. So I was surprised when I got the job offer, and I really struggled to make a decision. I was so happy working at Equity Marketing, but then the extra money would have been great. So I consulted my father, and he gave me some really good advice. He said that money should only be one factor in your decision to change jobs. So I stayed. Are you with me so far on my little communications journey? Okay, let me recap where we are in this little path. Remember, when I graduated American University, I wanted a job in television as a news anchor in New York City. Instead, I worked at a design agency where I learned to produce fashion catalogs. Then I went to an agency where I learned to launch promotional campaigns. Then I went to another agency where I learned to make toys for entertainment companies. And from there, finally, in my early 30s, I landed my first job in television at Turner Broadcasting. I was on cloud 9. I had made it. All of my previous roles had led me to this point. At Turner, I learned something that has been a really important part of this entire path. Okay, it's the third lesson. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Let me give you an example. At Turner, I started as a director selling promotional programs based on their characters, the Flintstones and the Jetsons, and I was quickly promoted to vice president. I had landed the kind of job I had always wanted. I had some great support from some great coworkers, and I had reached my goal. I was really comfortable. End of story? No, that's not the end of the story. So here's what I did. One day, I got a call from a person I knew who used to work at Turner, a person that I stayed connected with, who now worked at Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon had a job opening for a vice president of promotions marketing. It was a much larger job than I had at Turner. I would be managing a bigger team and have a lot more responsibility. And Nickelodeon was one of the hottest kids' television brands in the world, but I nearly turned it down. Why? I was comfortable. But my inner voice kept saying, you know what, Pam, just go on that interview because you never know what can happen. So I went. And that interview process stretched into 6 months. Yes, 6 months for a job I didn't even know if I wanted. And during that time, I actually became pregnant with my second child. And so I really could have stayed at Turner. That would have been the easy thing to do. But instead, I got offered that job, and I took it. That was over 20 years ago, and I've had an amazing career ever since. Within Nickelodeon, the path continued to be extremely winding. I've had many roles, all incredibly different. I kept learning new skills and expanding my leadership abilities, and then my path took another turn. It was actually 1 year ago this month, I became president of Viacom's global consumer products business. And you know what? I stayed at Viacom for a good reason. I am never bored. There is always a new challenge and new people to work with and learn from, and of course, a lot of new characters to get excited about. And now that I'm overseeing a global business, an entire world to discover, I am always slightly out of my comfort zone, which is something I've learned to be comfortable with. So, on to the fourth lesson. You have to model the behavior you admire in others. I have met and observed some of the most incredible people throughout my career. People who have brought energy just by walking into a room. Women who have seamlessly managed being a mother, a business executive, and giving back to their communities. People, for whatever their title is, were always kind. I've also met people who are not. I have seen people in business behave really badly. People who raise their voices and lose their cool. People that never show up to a meeting on time, and once they are there, they spend the entire meeting on their phones. Let me tell you a few things of the people I modeled my own behavior after. These are traits that I want you to follow. They did what it takes to get the job done, no matter their title. They were gracious, even when they were under tremendous pressure. They listened to others, and they brought a sense of humor and levity to tough rooms. So, as I leave you today, I want to move to the final lesson. Okay, you guys, this is going to be the most uncomfortable thing you're going to have to do. Everyone cringes when first I give them this advice, and I used to cringe too when it was told to me. You're going to have to be your own champion and advocate for yourself. In speaking with so many graduating seniors and many recent graduates, and even people within my own company, I have seen firsthand how hard it is for people to advocate for themselves. When you graduate and start pursuing a job, and there is a person you want to speak with, stay on them. Do not be afraid to ask them for a cup of coffee or to talk on the phone. And when you get that time, ask questions, be explicit about what you want, because as I said earlier, you never know what can happen. In closing, a career in communications is a winding path, but there is value to be taken in everything you do. Every job experience is valuable, and it's up to you guys to find the value in it. Make the absolute most of every opportunity, even if it's not your dream job. And keep in mind that every step you take along your own path will contribute to who you are as a professional and as a person. The great thing about the communications industry is that almost every skill you acquire is transferable. And let's face it, it's such an exciting time for you to be entering this business. I cannot wait to see what you guys accomplish. As for my path, I mean, who would have thought, right? After my parents dropped me off at Hughes Hall, that I would be standing here talking about SpongeBob, sharing my life lessons, and giving the commencement address at the greatest school in the world. Thank you.